Hey friends, this is Jason from EdulogiX, where we teach you logic behind things. So welcome back to my channel first of all, and today's video is all about why OBA was introduced in Australia. So for those who do not know that OBA is the new registration system in Australia for nurses, and it was implemented in March 2020 last year, and before that there was a different system altogether. And if you are new to the OBA procedure and you don't know much about it, I have done a detailed video and I will put the link in the description box below. So let's dive to our today's topic, why OBA was introduced in Australia. So just a disclaimer before we begin, the reasons I have listed in this video are completely based upon my opinion. AHPRA may or may not have considered these points. So AHPRA, Australian Health Practitioner Regulation Agency, regulates and assesses all the overseas qualified nurses in Australia. And from 2014, AHPRA has been working on a permanent model of assessment which is based upon international best practices and evidences. And they were conducting this research to see how the nursing assessment model in Australia can be at par with other countries as well. And during this time, they implemented an interim model of assessment, or I would say a temporary model of assessment that led to the previous bridging program pathway. And I think most of you will be surprised to know this, that bridging program was always a temporary pathway for overseas registered nurses. And once AHPRA concluded its research and conducted this study, they moved to the now new permanent model of assessment, which is the OBA, or outcomes based assessment. So now, since you have a bit of background, now let's move on to the reasons why I think OBA was implemented. So my number one reason is international best practice, and I think most of you must have guessed it by now. So if you look at all the research that AHPRA has done, and also in their fact sheets, they have mentioned that they were they were looking at how other countries work. And if you look at other countries like USA and Canada, they both have a national examination system which is called, again, the nclex-rn, which is the first exam that is conducted in Australia as well now. Now, if you also look at UK, now UK has an examination system again based upon competency-based assessment model, which has the first exam as a CBT, computerized based test, and the second exam as OSCE, which is a practical examination. Now, if you look at all these countries, all of them definitely have a national nursing examination that filters the nurses and provides them registration based upon how they perform in these assessments. And I think that is one of the most important reasons that AHPRA may have considered to standardize it with other countries as well. An interesting fact, the NCLEX exam in US and Canada is not only implemented for overseas registered nurses. Many of you, I think, will be very surprised to know that those who qualify their nursing degrees from US and Canada also have to undergo the National Council Licensure Examination, or the NCLEX exam, to get their license after their degree. Again, purely based upon my opinion, I think looking at how the trend is, AHPRA may consider in future to implement NCLEX exam for everybody, irrespective of whether they have qualified abroad or even those who have onshore graduated nurses. I think it is a very possible pathway, and let's see how it goes. So the next point that I would like to mention is mobilization. Now, it is related to our first point, which was international best practice. So as you all know that nursing is a regulated profession in all the countries, and whenever a nurse is moving from one country to the other country, she always have to undergo assessments and procedures to get the nursing license of the new country where she is migrating to. Now, the good thing about the OBA, or I would say the first exam, the NCLEX exam, is that since NCLEX exam is implemented in USA, Canada, and now in Australia, it gives much more flexibility to nurses if they want to migrate between these three countries, as once you write the NCLEX examination and you pass it, the validity of the NCLEX exam is 10 years. So if in case during this time you want to migrate to any other country, one step is already over for you, and you can now move to the next step, whatever, based upon that country's nursing registration system. So definitely mobilization is definitely, I think, the second most important thing that AHPRA must have considered. So my next point is standardization of assessment. In the previous bridging program pathway, the major lacune was the lack of standardization of assessment. Since these programs were implemented by different providers, all of them had different methodology of assessment, their course structure was different, and even their duration was different. Now, on the other hand, with the implementation of OBA, all the nurses have to go undergo the same system of assessment. So everybody has to write the NCLEX exam and pass through the OSCE exam and meet all the eligibility criteria and requirements before getting their registration. So definitely AHPRA may have considered this point, and the lack of standardization must have definitely be a reason for the birth of OBA or outcomes based assessment in Australia. So my fourth point is fees or cost. So if you look at the previous bridging program pathway, the average cost of the course used to range from $16,000 to $20,000. However, the new OBA pathway, if you calculate all the examination costs, etc., you will be roughly spending $5,500, excluding any kind of coaching fees. So definitely OBA is much more a cheaper option as compared to the previous bridging program pathway. So my fifth and final point is quality control. Now again, if you look at the bridging program pathway, since it was implemented by various providers, AHPRA had a limited role in only accreditation of these providers, and they were the ones who were doing all the assessments, etc. If you compare that with OBA, AHPRA is completely now fully under control of how things are run and how things are implemented, not only with assessment of the overseas registered nurses, but also in the examination conduction. So both the providers, Pearson VUE as well as Adelaide Health Simulation Lab, are the approved test centers by AHPRA, and AHPRA is the one foreseeing all the examinations under this. So I think quality control must be one of the reasons that AHPRA must have definitely considered when implementing OBA. So that's a wrap up for our today's discussion, why OBA was implemented. So if you think there are any other reasons or something else comes into your mind, it will be very interesting to know. Please put those in the comment section below. And also if you have any questions about the new registration system in Australia, please make sure that you enter your questions in the comment section and I will try to answer them definitely. I will also leave the link of my website in the description box below. Make sure to check it out for all the interesting reads, blogs, podcasts, and everything about the nursing industry across the world. If you like the content of my channel, please consider subscribing. It will definitely motivate me to release and make more videos which are informative. Thank you for watching. See you next week.